in order to be relationship to anybody, there's a certain box of capacity that we need within our nervous system in order to show up fully to that space. I was already maxed on capacity, and it was self-sacrificing.
Where would you recommend somebody just picking up from square one on how to expand that capacity?
And the first word that comes to me is no. In business, I said yes to everything, and I really created a name of being reliable, dependable, available. And so I attributed success with availability and just steamrolling my needs. What I really needed was to not only delegate, but I needed to be more discerning.
Welcome to the Vital Path Podcast, where holistic health, emotional mastery, and spiritual growth come to life through authentic stories, earned wisdom, and transformative insights from those who inspire what's possible. I'm your host, Andrew Newton, your steward on the journey to clarity, well-being, connection, and vitality. So take a deep breath, relax your body, and listen for what comes alive in you. This is the Vital Path, your invitation to awaken vitality, the missing piece shaping your transformation. Welcome. Today we have Wayne Barkus, a men's work facilitator, relationship and somatic coach, the founder of Sovereign One Clothing, and a beautiful father to two amazing daughters. It's a pleasure and honor to have you here, brother.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, man. It feels so good to be with you in this moment, in this time. Just really grateful for this opportunity to check in with you and go deep and go wide. Yeah.
Appreciate it, man. We've been on a journey together through the Austin growth space.
We have.
It has been many years in the making. So just grateful to have you here. And for those who don't know you, I'd love for them to get a little glimpse of your story.
Yeah.
And so what might be a part or parts of your story that have really shaped you that you'd like the audience to know?
Phew, wow. Okay. So let me put it just in like a condensed moment. And I appreciate you introducing me as a father, because being a father was really the catalyst of my journey. And if I were just to rewind a decade ago, I was emotionally turbulent. I was going through a divorce, didn't know how to move through the divorce. And so I was lashing out on my children. All of the stuff that I was experiencing showed up in the car. And I heard my daughter say, "Dad, you're scaring me." And that moment, it just like ripped me. And I realized that I didn't want to be that man anymore. And it really sent me on a magical mystery ride, of which I still feel like I'm on. And then it led me into men's work. It led me into the mountains of California. It led me to the jungle. It led me to Scotland. It led me traveling all across the world to not only work on myself, but then to show up and share what I learned, share the nuggets of the wisdom that I've learned through the process that helped me really alchemize the pain that I was feeling in the car when I was lashing out at my children, so that I could come back full circle to this moment and say that my relationship, not only with my children, but with my partner, with my family, all of it's devolved into nothing but peace, joy, and love. And that process for me is just really worth talking about. Yeah.
Thank you for introing that. And let's start with that role that personally I hold to the highest regard, is being a father, and how that's what got you into the work, is showing up in a way for your daughters that just frankly wasn't enough. There was more available. And so how has, I guess, feeling men's work, this somatic space that you've really been in of transformation, impacted the lives of your daughters?
Yeah, great question. I'm going to come back to the word capacity, and I'll probably loop that word as like the thread for this entire ride. At that point, my capacity was shot. All the experiences, all of the trauma, all of the deceit, all of the anger, all of the rage, all of the confusion, all of the frustration, my capacity was completely, the pendulum had swung to the point where I was completely fried. And what I didn't understand that I now understand is that in order to be relationship to anybody, to a partner, to family, to friends, to community, to work, there's a certain box of capacity that we need within our nervous system in order to show up fully to that space. What I didn't understand when I signed up for children is that I was already maxed on capacity. I was an entrepreneur. I had a very successful construction company. I didn't know how to delegate that well back then, so I took on everything as the hero. I was at 100% in every single facet of my life in terms of how much I was able to show up. And it was self-sacrificing. Like I was depressed. I was anxious. I was having very frequent panic attacks. And then I became a father. And so the operating system that I was running on wasn't working. And so what I wanted to go on a journey to is, what does it look like for me to expand my capacity for living, but do it in a way where it's healthy, where it's not burnout? What would it look like if I took all that I showed up for everybody else and poured that back in me? Then how would I actually show up? And it's been a wild ride, because what I learned and what ended up happening is that the capacity stretch that I was able to do, and then still see along the way the patterns of where I'm showing up too much, where I'm saying yes too much, and what I needed to do for myself in order to come back fully to show up again. It's been so epic. There was a moment where I was standing in front of 444 men in Scotland, and I'm just looking around, and I'm the one that gets to say the words that land in their body for them to remember who they are. And just rewinding, I was the guy in the car that was screaming. So the proof is in the process, really. And I was able to go into these spaces for myself with the support of other men.
I love you sharing what's possible.
Yeah.
And such a divide between that huge gap in capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have been on a similar journey to just stretch incrementally.
Yeah.
And of course, with every stretch, there's a little bit of recoil, and we just get to play in the patterns and just open up new neural pathways, new spaces within the body to grow.
Yeah.
And love more and be our most authentic, selves in all of that.
Yeah.
So thank you for being an example. And for somebody that maybe is just getting started and is like, capacity, what are we talking about here? Where would you recommend somebody just picking up from square one on how to expand that capacity?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first word that comes to me is no. That was a word that was so foreign to me. And I needed to learn to create the boundaries and be okay with people possibly rejecting me by me saying no. And that really started with business. In business, I said yes to everything, and I really created a name of being reliable, dependable, available. And so I attributed success with availability and just steamrolling my needs. What I really needed was to not only delegate, but I needed to be more discerning. And so the beginning stage for me was about discernment. And what I was realizing is that so many people were available to be there for me because there was likely something that they were getting from me, whether it was energy or whether it was connection, whatever the means was that they were reaching out, I was always there. But the piece that I realized was that I was resentful to all of them. But the truth was, I was actually resentful to myself because I didn't say no. And so I created all these little covert contracts and relationships with friends, with family, with community, where I'm saying yes, I'm burning out, I'm getting sick, and then I'm angry with them. And so really the no for me was the first journey of like taking my power back, because I was handing it out, and then I was a victim because I thought I was just powerless. All these people are taking my energy. Why are they? But no, it was me that was giving it. So the first step for me was no, and it was, man, was it uncomfortable? And then I started to say it more and more and more, and then people were like, "Oh, okay, no worries." And I would realize they'd travel somewhere else to get the yes, and then all of a sudden my field got empty. And then I was able to just sit with all of the no's and all of the space that was created and all of the people that just completely dropped like flies. And that's when I finally saw it for the first time. Like, oh, I'm the architect of my entire reality.
Oh, I love that on the other side of no.
Yes.
And the courage it takes to sit in that emptiness, that void of, wow, my life used to look like this. I used to say yes to everyone, appease and people please to meet my own needs, when in reality it was just resentment getting stored in the body and letting that come out in every which way to kids, to family members, and in business. That is such a telling and pivotal part of the journey, is learning what even a no feels like in the body.
Yes.
Because we can say we want to say no here intellectually, but how does that actually live in our hearts and in our guts?
Yeah.
So that is such a powerful key. And
yeah. Yeah, well, let me just rewind a little bit in that, in combination with the no, because that was like the macro, which was me saying no to others. Once I created the space and said no to others, I realized the next big no for me was the no I had to say with my own habits. And the biggest habit that I had, I mean, I'm talking micro habits, like turning the phone off at 8, not having any blue light, not watching TV anymore, choosing books and journaling over media, all of these little tiny micro habits. Then I got to the big one, which was sobriety. And when I decided to get sober, then I was saying no to the spaces that I was so frequent to going to, which was chaotical. What I recognized, Andrew, in that time was probably one of the most valuable shifts that I've had in my life, which is I believe that we all have an emotional home. And I heard Tony Robbins use the analogy that your emotional home's like a thermostat, and it's set to a particular temperature. For me, my temperature was set to chaos. I was so used to chaos growing up. My mother is bipolar, had a lot of very serious mental issues. That for me was my emotional home. So naturally, I was going to gravitate towards chaos. So the entire life I created of working 60, 70 hours a week, having drama with my wife at that time, having drama with friends, that was home. So when I said no and I got clear, clean, and sober, I got to sit with how that felt in my nervous system. I got to feel all that fire. I got to hear all of the stories that said you should go there. And every single day I continued to make the decision to say no, sit in that space, sit in the discomfort, because what that space actually represented was peace. And peace is a frequency. And the frequency of peace is neutral for me. That's like where I want to live. So the pendulum was swung towards chaos, and literally my entire nervous system was fried. It was burnt out. Once I got to peace, I got super healthy. And my color started coming back. The life started coming back. I no longer wanted to be consumed by drama and media or anything. All of those things just didn't align with my new natural state. But it took me a long time to get comfortable in the discomfort of what peace was. Once peace finally was like that thermostat, because what happens is we're turning the thermostat down to cool. And it's like, oh, it's really cool in here. Like, did somebody turn the air down? That was my life. And so I wanted to crank it up so many times. Well, maybe I should just go out and just see what people are up to. No. No. keep coming back to this new temperature, and this new temperature is now where I live. But in the range of capacity, I can venture over into chaos. I could travel the world, go to airports, have 400 men scream at a men's retreat. Again, that feels like home, but I also know I don't want to live there anymore. So that was really like the bandwidth that I was able to create, where I'm like, oh, I can show up into the space and be in it, but not of it.
Whew.
Yeah.
So good. And what really stood out to me in that was peace as a neutral state. Like, we attach so much positive, negative associations, identifications with these sad emotions as bad or angry as bad. And all of a sudden, when somebody evokes peace, that all of a sudden has this positive connotation. What if it's just neutral? What if it's our natural state? And anything that disrupts that peace, it's like, I'm going to say no to.
Yeah.
What a beautiful invitation. And this echoed my story so beautifully in that it started with daily habits, discipline. I was tracking my habits for 1,000 days. And that was all what it was. Spreadsheet. I'm going to do this because I said I was going to do this.
Yeah.
And just building that embodiment, that repetition of honoring one's own word and integrity to ourself. And then all of a sudden it became a prerequisite. I had to go sober.
Yeah.
After so much self-medication, I was numb to even really knowing what that true discernment of yes and no was. And after the daily discipline of the journaling, the breath work, the meditation, the walks, the mindful movement, the community, the connection, that helped me understand what that frequency of peace was within my own self, that's where it all started.
Yeah.
I've got to double tap on that sobriety piece.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of glorification in the spiritual space about plant medicines and even the beautiful healing capacities that these medicines have.
Sure.
And yet for me, that's just not been a central or pivotal part of my own journey, perhaps because I know how quickly I can go into these realms of addiction per se, and just knowing that about myself.
It's credible awareness. Yeah.
Thanks. And I would just love to hear somebody who's partaked in plant medicines. I know that you have as well.
Yeah.
And then also have come to that realization that sobriety is the way. What invitation can you invite others, maybe who are considering that path, but all of their friends go out to bars, or all of their social life is associated with these substances that in fact bring us down?
Yeah. Well, I'm older. So when I started this, I was about 39. So when it came to like the nightlife and the bars, I had been feeling for the longest time, why am I still doing this? I looked inflamed. I looked bloated. I couldn't take enough leave the next day. I mean, the level of disconnect that I had from my actual body was, oh man, it was just intolerable. So when I went on the sobriety journey, for me, the commitment was really holistic. What does it look like for me to be mentally, physically, and spiritually holistic moving forward? I didn't even know what spiritual meant. I grew up in mega churches. I also, like, as a little baby, went to Southside Chicago churches where like the music was lit, everybody was dancing. So like there was an element for spirituality for me that was like really honoring this kind of sacred dance movement piece that I had completely disconnected from. You wouldn't have caught me dancing probably for 14 years up until that point. There was no connection with my body. So naturally I wasn't going to be in the vibe of dancing. And so I went on this path of, okay, I'm going to show up for my body in the morning and I'm going to create this dope routine. And I probably went on like a 3-year journey of soaking in every podcast, reading every book, biohacking myself. So then I swung the pendulum. As much as I did with the drinking, I went that hard with the holistic lifestyle. And so I think if there's any piece of advice that I would give, and I've given it thousands of times. It's like we can't heal the same way that we were hurt. And in the way that I was hurt, it was really fast and it was really aggressive. And so naturally, I wanted to heal really fast and really aggressive. Once I read Peter Levine's book, Awakening the Tiger, and then I started reading, I'm like, oh my God, I've got so much trauma. I got to get rid of this, like right now. Like life is too short. I need to do every single step to get rid of it. The level of things that I did, I would go on Mind Valley and I would download all of these master classes every weekend on Saturdays. I was doing 4 or 5 hours of master classes. I'd be sitting in my living room in the Western burbs in Chicago doing energy work on myself. Did it work? I mean, it worked a lot better than going to the bars, for sure. I can point to that. But what I really wanted to do for myself was to create some sort of consistency and a blend. So naturally, I needed to swing it all the way over to be like, wow, I'm going so hard. And it's ironic because the deepest commitment that I ever made to myself, and it's what forged in me integrity and my word for like the first time in my life, Andrew, because I was not a man of my word whatsoever. I was flippant. I would cancel. I would have all the excuses. My word was flaccid. It was absolute shit. But along the process of doing my morning routine, something clicked for me. I was doing a 2-minute breath of fire and I just felt alive. For the first time, I felt my nervous system kind of start to respond in a way where I'm like, ooh, this is juicy. When I go out in the real world and it's pretty static and chaotic, it's not affecting me like the same way that it used to. I don't really like leave feeling jolted. I actually feel kind of neutral. What would it look like if I did this for 365 days for 2 minutes a day? What would that look like? And what would it look like if I didn't tell anybody? What if it looked like that I didn't even ask for support for it and I just did it on my own? Because up until that point, I had done the habit trackers and I had kind of had the support, but I'm like, what if I just did this with me? And this was just me looking in the mirror like, dude, we're going to do this. And at the end of it, we might have a story to tell or not. I don't know. But what I can point to, Andrew, and I've shared it with hundreds of men, at the end of the 365 days, my nervous system was completely rewired. Totally rewired. I was now able to move into the world in such an expanded state and not experience any stress. So going from panic attacks to anxiety to buying weed off of really crappy drug dealers and using that as my crutch for anxiety, to literally being able to travel the world, be on a plane for 22 hours, experience nothing but turbulence and this and that, and then to check my little app and be like, I'm in a restored state. Ooh, that's pretty juicy. But more than the nervous system piece was that I had fortified trust in my word for the first time in my life. And I knew that when I said something to somebody and I made a commitment moving forward, I was going to be the man that followed the commitment, or I was going to re-up on the commitment. If I knew, check in how they felt, if I changed the commitment and made a new agreement. And it was like a whole new way of architecting relationships with people. And it changed how people responded to me, because then they recognized like, oh, this dude's a man of his word. Like, I want to be around him. He does what he says he's going to do. And naturally, when it kind of fused into my relationship, the love and the trust and safety that opened up is game over. Game over.
So many parallels on my journey. There's so much gold there to tug on.
Yeah.
What you spoke to towards the end of that is renegotiating commitments.
Yeah.
And as men, there's a way to do that.
Yeah.
That's a little bit, call it taboo. Because on one side, we're told, be reliable, be consistent. It has to be this way.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, alignment changes.
Mm-hmm.
Agreements shift, relationships can change, and then we're in an agreement that's no longer true to
Totally.
oneself. So how does somebody communicate that
Yeah.
to somebody else? And that takes
Mm,
time
yeah.
and presence and ability to take ownership for where I was wrong, perhaps
Yeah.
a willingness to say, I was in the fault here. I spoke too soon. I overextended my capacity.
Hmm.
So is there, and that's been the beauty of men's work for me,
Yeah.
is each circle, each retreat, each experience that I come together with men, there are agreements that are made
Hmm.
and opportunity for me to be a man of my word and reinforce that. So
Yes.
is there any advice you might offer for somebody in renegotiating agreements?
The thing that comes through for me is the piece that I wasn't attuned to when I was canceling plans so flippantly, or when I would just make excuses. In part, I wasn't attuned to. The other part was that I actually didn't care, because there was so much resent running through me. Was that, what is the impact that that decision had on that person? And how does the impact affect their experience of me? So once I started really caring about how I'm going to be in relationship, and I want to continue to, in relationship, repair better. And so when it comes to like just a simple re-up on an agreement, I have no problem just being like, hey, I'd love to hear how this impacted you, and what you're feeling through this. And if there's any little thing that I can do to show up for you in a magnitude moving forward in combination with this agreement, let me know. And I've had a lot of guys be like, you know what, actually, I wasn't going to ask you, but now I'm going to ask you, are you okay helping me install this TV? Are you, can you help me move this thing, or can you help me plant this bush? Just these little like openings where I also get the opportunity to say no as well. Like, so can you be okay again with me not being available for it? But I like to open up at that point, like, okay, this clearly likely impacted you. What would it be if I just created like a little extra slice of time? And usually the re-up in the agreement that people ask me for is, man, I just love to have a cup of coffee. Because typically all we're looking for is connection anyways. And so when there's the disconnect and then there's the sever, I have to take into account what people might experience, what things might come up for them. And I'd like to just offer like the olive branch and move in closer to connection, rather than what I was doing is I was just literally cutting the cord of connection. And I don't care what you think. Now I just like to move forward just a little bit and open it up just a little bit wider for my availability. And that feels good for me. And it's often received in an incredible way too.
So beautiful. And to me, that's a trait of a high value man or a
Yeah,
healthy masculine man, is being able to zoom out from one's own experience and consider the impact on the other person,
big time.
because intention is different than impact.
Totally.
We have a desire to be peaceful, loving, helpful, when in fact
Hmm.
we don't actually know until we ask,
Yeah.
and create that space to permission the other person
Yeah.
and invite in new possibilities of how can we create a generative new solution that's more than what
Hmm.
originally was. So
Totally.
that's a really beautiful
Mm.
example. And it takes a man who's willing to step out of their own shoes and see the other person, in that. And that kind of leads us into some of what I value, in you as a friend, and
Mm.
see in myself, and what it is to be a high value man in
Hmm.
this day and age. We've
Yeah.
got so much conversation about toxic masculinity and what even that is. I personally don't even play into that narrative. When
Mm.
people ask me about that, I don't acknowledge it, because
Sure.
masculinity itself is divine and beautiful, and it is an energetic principle
Hmm.
that, of course, we have been maybe sold a lie about the manifestation of it, because we're angry, we're
Yeah.
carrying around unprocessed emotions,
Totally.
we're, spewing around these wounds that we've
Hmm.
had from early childhood and not processed.
Yeah.
And that is toxic in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah.
And, you're an embodiment of a quote high value or conscious man, however you
Hmm.
want to
Sure.
phrase it. So what are some of the characteristics you look for in embodiment, and how might you describe or the characteristics of a high value man?
That's a great question. The first thing that comes to me, it's kind of hand in hand with emotional intelligence and then being able to ask for what I need. So again, the through line being capacity, as if I know that, and I'll give you an example. I travel every single month and I go back to visit my children in Chicago. And then when I come off and I get off the plane, I'm back in relationship with my partner. Early on, when we were doing that, the second she would pick me up, she would drop all of the week of what she experienced, and I was gassed. My capacity was completely shot. And there's two ways to go about it. I can shut her down and collapse her and just tell her, please be quiet, or I can just ask for what I need, which is, Claudia, I've had an intense week and it's going to take me a little bit of time. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. I'm going to find neutral. I'm going to come back. And what I'd really love to do more than anything is actually hear you fully and be present with you. But at the moment, the amount of space that I have in my body, it's just kind of going in one ear and out the other because I'm gassed. And if I take on anything else, it might create a little bit more static. She got it. She's just like, yeah, of course, no problem. And so we actually have this thing where I get off the plane, I get in the car, and we would just hold each other. Because again, it just comes back to the thing that we really like sometimes doesn't always need to be through words. It just can be through connection. And then we take a couple deep breaths and then, okay, cool. I'm ready. I'm good. So it's the biggest complaint that I hear from women and the biggest struggle that I hear from men is women want to hear what men need. Men don't understand what they need because they haven't created the emotional attunement to the sensitivity of our human bodies. I'm feeling stressed, or I'm feeling this, or I'm feeling that. If we're not feeling, how are we ever going to be able to name the thing that we need? So that creates a tremendous amount of turmoil in life. So I'm going to start with saying your needs first. In combination with saying your needs, that's your truth. Okay. So I think where most men get choked up right here is holding back on their truth. So they don't speak it. And so they live in a silent prison. And in the silent prison, they create all of these different covert contracts. And trust me, I did it. And the covert contract is, I'm going to go home, I'm going to empty the dishes, and then I'm going to be mad while I'm emptying the dishes because I'm not getting the recognition for doing the dishes. Meanwhile, she could give two shits that I'm doing the dishes. She's not attuned to the dishes. She's thinking about the art that she's going to paint or the flowers that she'd like to buy. But I'm in this little space of the thing that I'm doing when all I'm asking for is just a little bit of praise. So could it be, hey, you know what? For all the times that I do the dishes, you know what I would love? Just a little neck rub afterwards. Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. How long do you want it for? 10 minutes. So then it's a win-win because I'm asking for what I need. She's attuned to the fact that there's something there for me. I'm doing an act of service. And in response, I'd like an act of service back, a little reciprocity. And my neck hurts. So it's like a win-win of understanding the needs, speaking our truth, and not sitting in that silent turmoil space. And being a man of our word, like if I were to put the three pieces, the pillars together, we're only as good as our word. And I know you just had Preston on here, and so I'm going to speak what I learned from him. Because there was a time in my life where I knew that I needed support and I knew that I needed direction. And I showed up to the second call after I hired Preston to be my coach. I showed up to the second call and I was late. And the way that they framed the calls is that we know what time it is, we speak what time it is, and then we agree that we're going to be on time. And he does this because he knows the first call out for people is that people's word is often limp. And so on the second call, I had 15,000 reasons, all of the excuses in the world. What does it matter? What does my word even mean at that point? And let me tell you, that hit me like an arrow. And that was when I went on the quest where it's like, oh, I got to quadruple down on what my word actually means to me. Because if I can't be in integrity with my word to myself, naturally, in relationship to everybody else, I'm going to be out of integrity. And most men are. In one way, one shape or form, they've got this little insidious way of breaking their word and being totally okay with it. And look, there are times where I'm going to overcommit. And there are times where my word is going to it's going to need to be re-agreed upon, and but the difference is how often does that happen? Is it like once a year or is it once a week? And so that stuff really starts to build the pillar of trust when we're in a relationship.
Gold between knowing our needs, having emotional attunement to what that need actually is, being able to communicate that. And I think if nothing else, it starts with being in integrity.
Mm.
And so I would just love to deepen into what that means for
Mm-hmm.
anyone listening, but especially the men, and how valuable that is as an internal compass and
Mm-hmm.
a way of being. And there were some beautiful threads we talked about within integrity. And it's not a black and white thing.
Yeah.
There's constant ebbs and flows. I'm certainly not perfect in the way that I show up, but there's a standard and an aspiration and a recognition of I've been out of integrity. What are the stories and excuses and reasons I've made up for why I didn't do the thing I said I was going to do? And then again, recommitting, taking ownership of, taking full responsibility again and again and again. And that's the unsexy name of the game.
Excuses are not sexy.
No, they're not.
Yeah.
And they perpetuate this idea that we're not enough. When we break our word over and over again, it just becomes an insidious inner voice. That inner critic that's already in all of us just becomes too loud to even hear that inner voice of truth, that inner knowing.
Yeah.
And so how did you begin to build in ownership and full responsibility? We're talked about habits and day to day. What are some of the lessons you can speak to from full responsibility of one's own life?
Yeah, it's a great question. If there's anything I'd love any man to take away from this is that I believe every man needs an ethos. He needs a blueprint for how he is going to live his life, because so many men, myself included, I was living under the blueprint that I was handed. And let me tell you, if I were to slide that blueprint forward and let you know what my father gave me and then my mother's father, what they gave me, you'd see a couple scribbles on it. And within it, I would see anger, I would see frustration, and I would see addiction. And that was the blueprint that I was handed. And so what I needed to come home to was that didn't work for my dad. He's miserable. He's unhappy. He's never really checked himself. It certainly didn't work for my mother's father. Miserable, unhappy, never checked himself. So what would it look like for me to demolish all of my structure and get back to the foundation and make non-negotiable agreements for how I show up for my mind, my body, and my spirit? So that ethos came back to my morning routine. And I'm going to use the word non-negotiable. Like, my morning routine was and is and always will be non-negotiable in my life. In the beginning, that was 7 days. Now I teeter from 4 to 6 based on what I need. Sometimes I need a space of no demand where I'm not doing any routines and I'm just like sitting in absolute emptiness. And I'll swing the pendulum that way. But I got clear. I sat down and I took a look at my body. I made some simple goals and I made some simple commitments. Go to the gym. Go there every day. Go 5 days a week. Do this. And then I started getting into the micro of the gym. And then once I got there, then I kind of went into my body because I started feeling better. And then I was like, oh, what am I putting in my body? Well, the water is fucked. The food is processed. All the sugars and things that I'm putting in, like everything that I was putting into my body was processed. It was creating inflammation. So I had to create an ethos for how I operate with my body, with all natural, right? And that was when the sobriety journey, and then spiritual. I'm going to be open to the mystery rather than having this core box that I'm going to put myself in. Let me just walk the path and see what shows up and start paying attention to the cues. Let me go to church in nature and let me pray to God wherever I'm at. Let me go into the mirror and look at myself in the eyes and speak words that I wish that my parents would have spoke to me, so that when I actually say them enough, I'm going to believe them about myself. Because so many of us want, dad to be proud or mom to love the partner that we choose. Not all of us are going to get it. And I had to give that gift to myself. So within the ethos, I was going to reparent myself. And I continue to come back to reparenting, where I'm like, oh, this is a moment where I'm reaching out to my partner for some nurturing, when really I could show up for myself that way. I just need an Epsom salt bath. I'm really sore. It's time for me to take care of myself. So I started making all these little non-negotiable agreements as the pillars of mind, body, and spirit for how I was going to show up in my life. Once I committed and found that groove and checked in on it and gave myself like appropriate, like, good job. We like this. We like this. We like this. I started to find myself. And when I started to find myself, I was able to relate to others a little bit differently. And I was also able to tell where people were out of whack, because I'd hear somebody say, wow, I'm super anxious, or I'm ungrounded, I'm like, cool. When was the last time you walked in nature? Nature? What do you mean nature? I'm like, do I have to explain nature? Oh man, like we've gone too far. So that's like that's the construct of how I show up for myself, is pouring into me every morning for 1 hour, non-negotiable, filling up my entire tank so that I could be of service to community, my partner, my children, the world, all of it. Yeah.
I love the non-negotiable.
Yeah.
It's just period. That's
Period.
all that we need to have there.
That's it.
And if you don't have a morning routine, Wayne's written a beautiful ebook that outlines all of the practices that are available. Go grab that. Start somewhere.
Yeah.
There's an infinite amount of tools, but this has worked for us. So
absolutely,
please start to practice and begin these habits. And there's a level to this where you build self-trust with oneself. And then it becomes, okay, how do I surround myself with other men who can reflect these things back to me?
Yeah.
And how do I begin to sharpen the sword in new and evolving ways?
Yeah.
And that's where I'd love to go.
Yeah.
Is the value of brotherhood and where we can't see what we're unaware of, our own blind spots.
Yeah.
What happens to men when they don't have that? And what do you see as the value of brotherhood?
Man, I really think isolation is like the biggest depression for men right now. And I know it because I was it. I did it. I experienced it. I got divorced. There was a moment where my friends showed up, and then there was a moment where they all went away. And then I realized, oh, wow, I'm in this on my own. I'm experiencing the downward spiral, and I need support. Like I'm no longer married, and I've got children, and I'm divorced. And so I'm in this new bracket, which is kind of like an interesting space, especially for a mid-30s man, where I no longer am a part of the groups that had children or doing the thing. I'm kind of out there. And that's when I decided, what would it look like for me to have support? And it was like right before COVID hit that I decided to join an online virtual men's circle. And just from the space of like being able to kind of talk through and recognize, I'm not alone, because boy, did I feel alone. I felt like I was the only man in the world going through what I was going through. And then when I started speaking to it, I'm like, wow, this dude's going through it. He's going through it. He's going through it. What if we showed up for each other and helped each other go through it? And then we started speaking like, hey, do you need a little accountability? Like, I could use some accountability. And then we had this energy of like evolution going that helped to unstuck us all. And that was really where it all began. I think that was 2019 for me.
I'm getting chills about that, because that piece in community, in brotherhood, in that time frame, a lot of us woke up to what was necessary, the shadow sides of us that were perhaps driving the bus.
Sure.
And you said something that is a narrative in the men's space. Really, every man is holding this heavy burden that I've got to do this alone.
Yeah.
And there was a quote that you wrote on your Instagram, and frankly, there's just a resonance that's coming through you. It's beautiful poetry. So if you get a chance, follow this man on Instagram. It's really,
thank you.
It's beautiful to witness and be a part of. And there was something that you wrote in here I'd like to read, because it speaks to this point. I've sat with hundreds of men who've built empires, raised families, survived trauma, and still the heaviest thing they've ever carried was the belief they had to do it alone.
Yeah. Rocked me to my core, man. I get chills just as you read it, because I can remember every man that said it to me, and just the tears. But when they said it, there was something magical that happened that I felt. And it was something that I felt for the first time from that man. And I know it because I felt it myself. Relief. It's like, oh, relief. Like, it's like, we're so often raised to be supermen, to be superheroes, to like put on this massive cape of performance and let me get here to the mountaintop. And what I experienced in my journey with the Sacred Sons that really like landed for me, I don't know that I would have ever actually known if I got to that mountaintop, because the fulfillment was lost. The journey became so mundane, and something along the way got depressed. And I think so many men are experiencing that, oh man, like this wasn't what I expected. And if there was this grandioso moment of like validation or, I made it, I'm not feeling it. And so, oh shit, now what? Like, do I got to do this alone? Is anybody else? And so when I would hear men start popping off, like, I'm just lonely. I'm just sad. I'm just tired. I'm like, oh, we're all in this together. We don't have to do this alone. This is kind of like a universal feeling, and it's okay. It's natural. I'm glad you're feeling that. But what does it look like moving forward now to actually ask for support? Yeah.
Man, I'm feeling this.
Yeah.
What dawned on me in this experience is something you said about climbing the mountain and this mountaintop experience that we all have in life. And then all of a sudden we're like, oh, I'm actually there. I've made it. I've arrived. But without doing it in community, it can feel empty or hollow.
There's no trumpets playing.
No. And if we're doing it alone, everyone, I think, at this point in the game has realized we can will things into creation. We can hard charge and create things in life. That's a beautiful gift about being a human. And then when we're not doing it around people that we love and care about, other men who are also journeying on their own mountaintops, it's hard to realize that we've made it. We've actually accomplished something, and to be celebrated in that along the way. It's one of the subtle benefits of being surrounded by other men consistently who are growing and building, not just in business, but in the heart space, relationally, in all realms of life. And that really just dawned on me. It makes the journey sweeter by doing it in community, in a tribe of other men doing the same thing. Yeah.
And if there's something I'm going to just trickle in there, is men need celebration. Like, I know it for myself, and so I hear it enough that I'll throw it out there. Okay, maybe not every man needs celebration, but I think it's valuable and it's so important for men to be celebrated by other men, because the competition era of trying to be better than another person is so fickle, because there's no true reward, because nobody's really celebrating you. It's just this journey with your ego in the mirror that you think that success looks like a particular thing. But what I've learned and what I truly value in the relationships that I have with men is men that celebrate my evolution. I'm not going to be this version of Wayne in a year when you have me sit down, because I'm going to go through trials and tribulations, and I'm going to go through successes. I'm going to go through pivots. There's going to be so many full moons between there that's going to do so much purging in my system that'll allow me to possibly be more, more relaxed or more charged or more attuned, more connected. There's a lot that happens in a little bit of time. And I love celebration from my brothers, because these are checkpoints for me to actually stop, take a sweet little pause, and just pat myself on the back and say, dude, whoa, like, can we just slow it down and appreciate the sauce that you've cooked up here? Because it's otherworldly. Like, this is the substance of life that I've tapped into that's so good. And it only keeps getting better. It gets better every time. You and I, just years ago, were sitting under a little canopy and you were talking to me about titrating off your meds. This is the more, this is the better, this is the essence. This is why I celebrate you. This is why I see you. This is why I honor you, because I get to be a reflection for your voice, your father, whatever that might be, where you get to like come home and really truly appreciate yourself, your courage, your resilience, your tenacity, your fire, your fearlessness in the face of adversity. Men need that. And if they're not giving it to themselves, they're looking for it in a woman. And if the woman's not giving it to them, then they're creating covert contracts and they're moving on to the next woman. And thus the cycle continues. Men need men. Men need to feel their grief and their pain to heal that peace that they never got from their father. My father in no shape or form could ever hold my grief. He couldn't hold my pain. When I came over there and I was crying, when I found out that my ex-wife had an affair, he just looked at me like, I don't know what to do with you right now. This is some shit, you know? What I really needed was him to fucking buckle on the floor to his knees with me and hold me. And just let me sob, let me weep, let me hold generations of pain, let me let it through. And he wasn't there for me. And that's okay. I now recognize he didn't have the capacity for that. I have no judgment, only compassion. But I did recognize I needed to find that in other men. And damn, let me tell you, did I find that and then some? Yeah, with the Sacred Sons. Yeah.
That's a mic drop right there. There's something I want to touch on. The Sacred Sons, that's such a beautiful opening there.
Yeah.
Because that community is just one of empowerment for men to bring men into their hearts and experience this full range of what it is to be a man. So I'd love to hear a little bit about what it was like to lead in that community for so many years, and then completing that process in coming into your own, reconciliation with yourself and moving into this next chapter.
Yeah. Yeah. The Sacred Sons was the place and the space that I went to when I looked in my journal, and the piece that was in my journal that hit harder than any other piece when I was self-grading my life. I mean, friendship was pretty low too. But the journal had 10 facets of my life, which was how I built my ethos. And my lowest 2 scores was friendship and adventure. And so what a beautiful opportunity to leave Illinois and go into the mountains of California, get some adventure in my system, and possibly enrich my life with new friendship. Because again, I'm freshly divorced. I'm looking for men that may be able to connect on the level. Maybe there's some other divorced guys or fathers. I wanted to learn. I wanted good men in my life. So got on that jet plane, and what I experienced within the first 5 minutes, Andrew, it will never be lost on me. Picture Wayne wearing a sweater vest to a Sacred Sons event. Now, if you've never seen a Sacred Sons event, again, I had no social media account, right? I'm a construction guy. I'm a dad to a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. Okay. So I'm like the soccer dad, right? And my partner at the time was like, I think this would be good for you. And so I show up as that version of me, and they just looked at me and they just hugged me. They welcomed me. They embraced me. I never felt rejected or looked down on. They all had all of this like gear and this look, this expression, this style. I'm like, I don't know where you guys came from. Like, what is this? And what I learned through that journey was not only do men get to heal with other men, but men get to show up and hold each other accountable to their own word so that we can just be better fathers. We could be better husbands. We could be better partners. And I found myself connecting with so many men all across the globe. And I now had men that I could reach out to, and we would share podcasts, we would share books, we would do little, routines and rituals and these things. And we were all, kind of on this journey together. And then I cracked in that space. Once I started to feel the safety that they created there, because men aren't going to be able to unlock anything unless they feel safe. And the level of safety, the level of comfort, the level that they offered to me was unparalleled in anything that I had ever experienced. Yes, I was a little confronted by the edginess of their tone and their look, but I was also kind of enamored. I'm like, these dudes look dope. Like, they're like my age, and they've got a flair that's been lost on me. I've gotten completely whitewashed in the suburbs of Chicago. My expression was gray, right? And so when I cracked, and I had all of these guys around me, and then after I cracked, they shared, wow, man, you just spoke to my entire experience, what you were going through with your daughters. I'm now going to show up differently. I'm now going to show up differently. I'm going to be a better man. I'm going to do this. I was like, oh shit. Like, when we actually share our truth, when we get raw and real and just transparent about what's going on, we create this symmetry, this synergy of energy with everybody that we all start to alchemize whatever that deep stuff is, and we just go up a couple octaves in our system, and then we start vibrating from that place. And it was the first time I was like, whatever this octave is, I can point to truth. I can point to transparency, and I'm supported. And so I don't care if I go back home and nobody gets me, because I've got this community. They got me. And that was when I decided, I think I've got something here, this gift to share with the world. Let me show up and let me be a leader. Let me go on this path of self-discovery, self-realization, to really understand what it looks like for me to have the capacity to show up for hundreds of men. And what would that look like for my 2 little daughters when they feel that man that's gone through all of the depth of his stuff to then show up and be able to speak with truth, to hold their little hearts? Man, that was worth it to me. And the payoff, one of the biggest challenges of divorce is that they are raised in a home that I have no ability or to do anything about whatever the belief system is, right? And so when they come with dad, they want to unravel and unpack and possibly learn from dad. They know dad's the guy that travels the world. They know what I do. They're curious. They feel like trust and credibility in me. And it's a really interesting space to be in because I just want to hold all of the truths that's her truth. That's my daughter's truth. Like, let's just kind of, and when we got to the bottom of the frustration and the anger that they were feeling, I recognized that in the car at the parking lot at the movie theater, I was actually processing my daughters as I would the men with the Sacred Sons. And so I left the Sacred Sons because I felt like there was a point in my life where I had mission accomplished. The thing that I set out to do, I did. And it was super clear. It was my intuition. I felt like, okay, now I get to show up. Now I get to integrate all of this stuff. The piece that's missing in so many medicine things and so many workshops and so many things is the actual integration. The amount of work that I've done, I can integrate it into my life forever. And now I'm sitting in that integration where I'm holding my daughter's hearts. I created safety and I created the space for them to express their truth. And once I got to the bottom of it, all they just wanted to feel was more love. And it was the rawest, most realest moment I've ever had with my daughters. We're in the parking lot. I'm feeling grief come out of my body. This just black, dense energy in just the grief of not being able to raise them in their entirety through the divorce, and the grief that I feeling their contraction because of the love that they need, that they might not be getting to the capacity that they certainly deserve. And I got to just move that, and they got to witness it, and we got to just hold each other in it and just make this new commitment to be transparent, to be honest, and always come back to love. And I'll tell you what, for all that I've done, that one specific moment was so worth it to me in my life, because that's the imprint that my daughters are going to have of what it means to be a man. And so when we do this work, all I want to do is have my children not find this person, and they might. That's okay. That's their lesson. But the imprints that I get to imprint them with is from a space of love, and that's it. So anything that wobbles outside of that frequency, my prayer is that their intuition catches it, and that they can be discerning about it. So yeah, I know that's, but that's the reason I did it. That's the reason I went to the mountains. I just simply wanted to be a better human. And I ended up being an incredible father for it. And I ended up being an incredible partner for it, all because I made that decision to open up my capacity and actually get into the operating system and feel everything that I could possibly feel. It's such a blessing.
My heart is wide open right now after that story. I'm really moved.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Truly a gift.
Yeah.
And this is why we do it.
Yeah.
And it's so inspirational to know that it started as a you journey, as a me journey, and it has had ripples in relationship, in family, in your business, in the way that you show up in the world. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Such a gift to share that. And wow, a million ways to go from there. But there was a nugget that I want to speak to next is about prayer.
Yeah.
And the importance of prayer. And when I see you, I admire somebody who prays for others in a way that's unique to your heart.
Yeah.
And so I'd like to ask a series of questions about prayer. And let's just start by saying, what is that for you?
Yeah. Man, I love this question, and prayer is so intimate to me. I will bring in the story of when I went to the jungle and I sat with ayahuasca, and it's not a recommendation or an invitation or even a suggestion to go. But it is an important part of my journey. And I know that we, kind of touched on it before as to, the plant medicine space. And, what was interesting for me, Andrew, is that I did this whole holistic thing, and I think that I still had some questions after I got to the end of what I would say the pinnacle of, doing my routine, doing this and doing that. There was a particular connection with God or the mystery that I was still missing. Even in my spiritual journey, it was like there was a piece of faith or a piece of trust that maybe I felt was broken, or maybe I just didn't understand, right? And it was in that space that I believe the call for me came through. And that call had that seed had been set 3-4 years prior. And I had come across the facilitator and I watched him. I listened to him. I paid attention to how he spoke, paid attention to how he moved. And I found him to be incredibly special. And I did a sound healing at one of the Sacred Sun events, and he led it. And it was all jungle sounds. And boy, oh boy, something touched in me. It was like the phone was ringing, and I got done after waking up from a pool of drool, and the whole room was empty. And I went up to him and I'm like, "What was that?" And he's like, "That was the jungle." And I'm like, you tapped into a symphony that I didn't know was real, And he's like, "Well, if you're ever interested, I'm happy to share more information." And so I will say this about it. When I went, I would say that I was a 6-string guitar with all strings out of tune. And there was a question that I asked, and I'll share it here, that was a very important question to me. So, I mentioned that my mom's bipolar, and the level of mental things that she's experienced, Andrew. It's really otherworldly. And a good part of my journey of understanding mental health, mind, body, and spirit is I really wanted to be able to help my mom. She's diagnosed with everything under the sun and also drugged up with everything under the sun. And as a clean, sober, empowered, sovereign man, it's really challenging for me to witness my mom in a system that's created a fucking vicious cycle. And if you've ever heard of electric shock therapies, they're called ECTs. My mom has had 96. She's 79 years old, bro. And that 96 she's had since the beginning of fucking COVID. And so I see the loop and I pay attention to patterns. And really, I just wanted to understand what I could do. And in the ceremony, what I experienced was something that I had never experienced before, which was I was able to let go of wanting to save her and save the world to some magnitude. And I was told to pray. And I could still feel it now because it was so intense. What I didn't realize is how powerful prayer is. Not only when we pray for somebody do we release the judgment of that person, but we create the opportunity and the invitation for possibility. What I was doing was I was spending so much of my energy judging a system, but I had forgotten to look at the possibility of my mom being healed. And the prayer was the bridge for that. And in the ceremony, she said, "Do you not trust your God?" to be so powerful to answer your prayer. And the truth was, at that point, I had not. And so I went on the journey to believe in prayer. And I pray for everyone. And what's happening now within my mom and my dad is so much more of a miracle than the prayer I even asked for. I didn't even allow myself to pray big enough to see what I'm actually seeing happen in my parents, to have the conversations, the vulnerability, the openness, the asking for support from their son. I never even dreamed this to be possible. And so when I started to see that happen, I said, what would it be like if I actually started praying for all of the men in the world? What would it be like if I invited my entire audience on social media to join in the power of prayer? I started looking at my followers and I'm like, wow, between the women and the men, I have millions of people that have access to a simple request, which is, can we just pray for these brothers? Can we just pray for these men? Because in the prayer, I continue to see the possibility. And as I continue to pray, I continue to see the men heal. And so I'm aware fully of the darkness. I'm completely aware, attuned. You want to jump in my posts, I reveal as much as I could possibly reveal without getting taken down. I know that there is darkness there, but I also know how much better it feels for me to pierce the space with the power and the light of prayer. Man, I'm telling you, it's changed my life and has also taken the edge off of me wanting to take care of the entire world. Because let me tell you, that Superman cape, it's pretty legit. And I'm grateful for the functioning. But in that, I do believe in God and the power that comes through holding up the possibility for somebody in whatever way that is in alignment for their best self. Yeah. Yeah.
Insanely beautiful share.
Yeah.
So powerful.
Yeah.
The power of prayer has opened up inexplainable possibilities for me as well. And I just invite any man in this room to get yourself another man around you who's praying for you.
Yeah.
And if we can say a prayer for you, please drop it in the comments, because this is truly a lived experience for me.
Yeah.
And to continue on this beautiful thread of prayer, is there a prayer you're praying now that hasn't come to fruition yet? Maybe something you've held for a year, 10 years, 20 years that you're holding as a beautiful vision for the future?
That's a great question. There's prayers that I have for my daughter, although I've been, somewhat shown and felt that everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be just A-okay with my daughters. They're on a beautiful path and a beautiful journey. But I do pray for their path. I pray, I blaze that path with them full of light, like so much light for them, because I see what's happening in the world. I know the direction that we're going. I see the enemy at play, and my daughters are going to be exposed to quite a bit. And so I definitely want to fill their path with prayer. And, I love praying for other people. Like, I often don't, pray for myself. I ask for others to pray for me, because like, it's an interesting thing. Like, I just love praying for other people. But if there was a prayer that I could, ever ask, for me, it's just for me to continue to see, and for me to continue to open up, and for me to continue to show up in the magnitude and feel the support, for me to share my truest expression, my rawest, edgiest, vulnerable self, in the magnitude and the capacity that I do. That would be the prayer that I would ask for the collective to keep on going, because this is warrior work out here. What you and I are doing, this is warrior work, bro. This is needed, and the fire naturally gets dim sometimes for me, and it's an incredible amount to self-source. And so I feel those prayers, I feel the spirit of the support, I feel when people lift me up, and I just feel the path just open up more clear, and for that I'm grateful.
So good. And for me, a prayer I've been praying lately is, in the essence of praying for another, it's choosing somebody where there's charge or accounts or some resistance about, and presencing that. And what you so beautifully spoke to is watching the judgment melt away in prayer and giving that up to God or higher power, however we relate to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just magic.
It really is.
Truly.
It really is.
And it's like, it's a spiritual technology that for me has just been lost.
Yeah.
And so such a gift to get to share in this prayer with you. And perhaps as the final question here, is there a prayer or a dream perhaps that you're holding and praying into that will outlive you, that is not likely that you'll get to see in your lifetime?
Man, you know what I love about that question is I immediately recognize that I'm not dreaming big enough. That's simply it. Like I would say about 5 years ago, I just started recognizing that I stopped dreaming. I just started producing and going forward and got, on the rabbit wheel. There was a moment in my condo in the west suburbs, and I was sitting in a papasan chair and I was meditating, and I was really focusing on what I would love to see and feel and hear. And then I found myself here in Austin, in the exact place that I was meditating on, and it was such a surreal moment to me, because I'm like, oh, wow, it worked. Like, it happened. I focused on what I would like, and I'm not going to get into manifestation or anything like that. If you want to get into that, like Joe Dispenza, you could go down that road all day, but it worked. And so for me, I'm acclimating myself to dreaming bigger. And the current dream that I'm living and that I'm walking is to launch my men's clothing brand. And so if you were to advance it after that, it would be that the word would be legacy. And I've been to so many men's funerals where there was nothing said about them, because the impact that they made on others people's lives was completely missing. And so if there was anything that I would pray into existence, is that my children are singing songs about their father, and that my children's children are singing songs about this path of remembrance, so that we can continue to remember and remember and remember, because we're in a culture that's wiping out our ancestral lines. And I don't know anything about my father's father. I don't know anything about my mother's fathers. And so if there was anything, it would be that there would be songs of love, songs of joy, songs of freedom, infused with some Rasta, Bob Marley, and maybe a little, Tupac blend, because I've got all those spirits in me. And that we just have this harmony that's infused into our bloodline, that's just passed down, that we were the ones. We were the ones that created life-changing frequencies, and we were the ones that broke all of the curses. And so, like if I were to dream, it would be so far advanced that is felt through generation after generation, so that those children can show up in a new way, because they remember who their family was.
May it be so.
Yeah, and so it is. Yeah.
So beautiful, brother. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing these prayers.
Yeah.
The richness and authenticity of the stories that you shared just moved my heart.
Thank you, bro.
Being a part of and living into what it is to be a healthy masculine man, and just sharing your message, the poetry that you're bringing through is a gift to me and all of those who are listening today. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing this today. I cannot wait until next time. We're entirely new humans getting to have this conversation, but it was truly a blessing. Thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, and thank you for having me again. Just celebrating my brother for showing up, for getting this dope space here in Austin, Texas. You're doing it. Yeah, man, I just really admire your courage. I admire your consistency, your discipline, your bravery. Like, you followed your word the entire way that I've watched you. And I'm just really honoring you for that, man. You're a good one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, until next time, go live your life. Peace. Thank you for tuning in to the Vital Path podcast. Let me know what landed for you in the comments. Until next time, God bless, and go live your life.